Welcome to Season 2 of RecLess, the podcast making you smarter and more knowledgeable about the field of parks and recreation. Join hosts Shane Mize, Jay Tryon, and Tom Venniro, three career-long friends from around the country as they dive into the world of parks and recreation with a surprise guest each episode. Laughs, leadership, life. This is RecLess.
Welcome to the 24th episode of RecLess. This is our second episode of season number 2, a podcast where we're focusing on the industry of park and recreation through three close friends that are in different parts of the country. I am your host today. My name is Jay Tryon, and as always, I'm joined with Shane Mize out of Texas and Tom Venniro from the state of New York. What's going on, guys?
What's going on, Jay?
Just glad to be here. Good to see you guys today.
I know. We typically do this on Fridays, and it's Friday again, and we're heading into football playoff weekend again. So hopefully we guys can have some good games, unlike the games that I did not enjoy last week.
How's our Super Bowl picks looking? Is Seattle and the Jets still options?
Those were your picks. Yeah.
I got one left. I got the Lions.
Okay.
I don't even remember who I picked when we had that conversation.
You didn't, I don't think, because you were all superstistic. Superstistic? You
just super.
I believe, yes.
Just super. That's all I am.
Super something.
You know, I wouldn't surprise me if I didn't pick, because it makes sense that I would have been superstitious about that. But I'm rooting for the Lions big time. So that'd be awesome. But let's see. So as we've talked about on previous episodes, you know, we did a lot of talking about the national conference that takes place every year. And that has always been a week that the three of us look forward to, along with so many other friends of ours, that it's our one time a year to get together. So we love it, obviously, so we get to spend time together, but there's also the educational piece and a lot that we get out of it professionally. So my question to you guys today to kind of get started with the podcast is, has there been another training opportunity or a conference or workshop, webinar, you know, something education-based that you have attended that's not the national conference that has had a major impact on you personally or professionally?
For me, it would be the state conference here. And I say that's probably an obvious answer for some, but you know, when I got into the profession on a full-time basis, I was one of those individuals who didn't go into the major, you know, that wasn't what I did in school. So I had no idea what the profession had held. When we had Haley Herzig here, we had talked about how there's an association for associations and really, you know, associations for everything, right? So coming out of school, I really had no idea what these associations were all about. When I was working part-time for summer camp and after school, that's how I got into it, right? So I was just doing part-time work in and out of college. And then when the full-time position opened up, I had an idea what I've been doing or what I would be doing or have the opportunities to. And then all of a sudden, the opportunity came to go to one of these state conferences. And I will never forget that first experience. It blew my mind. You know, I think from one of those perspectives of I liked school for a while, right? So, and then of course you get to your later years in high school and you start to enjoy the social life a little bit more. Maybe it's more about sports and friends and, you know, attending those events that the schools put on for you all to really create that social environment and community that you have within your own, you know, your own local school, wherever that may be. So when I shifted out of that and it became a little more social, I never really thought that I'd get back into the education piece until I went to my first state conference. And it was everything I could have imagined. The education sessions just opened my mind and enlightened me to so much more than I had thought the profession was. I could remember taking some ideas back. And these were back in the days where I felt like I could take the ideas that we got from conference and implement them right away, you know, when there wasn't maybe as much on our plates. Now it seems to be a little more challenging to do that, and immediately putting them into practice, then finding out, oh, you can nominate your programs and services for awards based on what we learned at conferences. And so that really was the gateway. I hate to say it that way, but that was my gateway of getting into the professional development field.
Yeah.
or portion of everything was going to these state conferences, forming these relationships, and every aspect of it just got me hooked.
That's awesome. And it's funny you say that about like the drive to immediately implement something, because I vividly like used to go to a ton of programming sessions and I'd want to go back and implement that program or special event. And now, you know, later in your career, it's more initiative driven, or it might be like big picture things that obviously can't happen overnight. So that momentum might have to pause, but you still have that energy to go back and implement something. What you got, Shane?
The state conference makes a lot of sense too. And I think I felt some ways like everyone has. It's usually state conference before national. But for me, that conference experience happened at NERSA when I just left the coaching side of things. I was doing the campus rec side of things. I was at Western Illinois and we went to NERSA, and I'd never been before. And that's the National Intramural Rec Sports Association or Rec Student Association, something like that. It's the campus rec of NRPA. And I was blown away with that conference experience, the vendor hall, the sessions, the socials. And when I was trying to start the Young Professional Network, I stole some things that I remembered that I really enjoyed from the NERSA experience. I don't know if y'all remember when we first started the YPN, we had a career center where we were doing, not only did we post job boards, and the NERSA career centers and intense because you can actually get hired at NERSA, not just for GA jobs, but you can be hired on, for the campus rec positions as well. So you can go in and get a box, and that mailbox is yours that week. And they have this mailbox center, and you can apply for jobs. And how you apply is you put your application in the University of Georgia mailbox, and if they like you, they'll put a time to interview you in your mailbox, and you go check your mailbox a couple times a day, and you see you have interview times, and you're on the spot. So we tried the Career Center. Obviously, government agencies don't have that academic cycle that fit really well with the NERSA hiring system. We're hiring people at all times. We did do that. We did do resume prep. We did post jobs on a bulletin where people could walk up, and we did use the Career Center as a meeting point for the YPN. All those things were things that we did at NERSA. The Take a Student and Young Professional Lunch is ripped straight from NERSA. They used to have a Take a Student to Lunch, and I just remember thinking, and they did it for 3 days. And it was really cool that you just knew for 3 days you could go find an adult professional, and they were essentially obligated to take you to lunch. And you could just, it wasn't as formal as ours, but I could just, if I was a, 22-year-old grad and I see Jay and he's at the University of New Hampshire, walk up to him, introduce myself, start talking and say, do you have a Take a Student rep? And if you say no, cool, let's go eat. And you did that 3 days in a row. So it's 3 people that you were forced to make contact with, 3 people that would take you to lunch, 3 people that you got to develop your network.
Yeah.
It was really cool. And so we obviously weren't going to have that type of application at NRPA, but we did try as a Young Professional Network and have even still to this day have the Take a Student or Young Professional lunch. And so, yeah, that NERSA formed a lot of what I thought. They did some really cool things like shirt swaps that are epic. If you ever go, it's a really incredible experience. Not something we probably replicate here, but yeah, NERSA was a really cool. I got to go for 3 years, two or 3 years, and 2 years I went as a grad, and then 1 year I went looking for jobs, and it's a cool experience.
I'm a little disappointed that you just mentioned a shirt swap. I've been trying to get a shirt from you for like 10 years, and I've still yet to get one. I see you every year, sometimes multiple times a year, and I still don't get a shirt.
Maybe I need a shirt from you. Maybe we should swap.
You've never asked me for shirts, though. I ask you all the time.
That's right. That's true.
Well, I think it was Vegas where it wasn't so much a shirt swap, but Shane just brought a whole bunch of his shirts. So I don't know where you were in that point in time, Jay, but he was just handing them out like candy.
Slinging them.
Probably. He probably gave them all out before he saw me so
That's
that
right.
everyone else would be wearing one, and then I'd be so jealous throughout the entire week.
That's right.
Is my guess. Well, I'll talk about my thing that I was thinking about, and really there's 2 reasons why I chose this question and 2 reasons why I'm choosing my answer. And I was fortunate to go to NRPA Director School about 6-7 years ago. And that would be the thing that comes to mind for me. And Director School was special. It was my first time doing a NRPA school, first time going to Oglebay, which Oglebay's beautiful, great location, great, just off the beaten track, kind of gets you in an element to be able to meet people, communicate with folks, get close to them, because there's not much else there in Wheeling, West Virginia. So you're kind of on this little resort area, and you're just in classrooms and in time with people, communicating with them and getting to know them on a deeper level than necessarily a conference where people are leaving and going out to different restaurants and, exploring the city. Because when you're at Oglebay, you're staying in Oglebay pretty much. And the relationships that I was able to build there were pretty strong. I mean, we always build relationships at conferences, but it's very different because at Ogilvy, it's a lot smaller. There might be 100 people there total. So you're not meeting 5,000 people or seeing 8,000 people like you would at a national conference, because you're just talking to them on a deeper level. And then, you get forced during these schools to pair up in groups and teams and work on team projects. So like, I'll still never forget, my team had myself, someone from Hawaii, someone from Maryland, and someone from Seattle, and all completely different size agencies, different municipalities of who you're serving. Obviously the folks that are the individual from Hawaii, their focus was very different than the 5,000 capacity town in Maryland that is a much smaller, organization. So, and what you're serving and your amenities and your features and your parks are all very different, but it's great because it kind of forces you to all learn from each other and create a project that is cumulative from your knowledge and experience. So with that being said, our guest today was at director school with me, and that's how I got to know this person. So that is partly why I chose that lead-in question. So I don't even know that you guys know what year it was or know the people that have gone to director school. So that doesn't even give you any hints. So were
they the person from Hawaii, Maryland, or
they were not? They were not on my team.
You didn't use names. I didn't know if they were redacted to protect the innocent. Okay,
not at all. So they were not on my team, and I don't know which team they were on or who they were with at that time, because there were a lot of teams. But our guest today, neither of all of us have worked with this individual. You may or may not know this person. I actually asked the guest before we started, hey, do you know? And they have had one introduction potentially to one of you, but not both of you.
Oh, no.
So who knows if you don't know which one it is. Our guest today has had over 20 years of a variety of different leadership roles. They've received a number of awards, including the Midwest Region Professional of the Year and the POTSI Development Scholarship. They are a well-known...
That's for the academy. That's from the academy to go to director school. Is that what that is? Okay.
They're a well-known speaker, and they lead a variety of topics on financial sustainability and change management. Prior to their current role, they were with the town of Erie, Colorado for over 6 years in a variety of roles, including deputy town administrator.
That Erie sounds very familiar.
Erie's done some great things, and they got some great staff that have been with the department now and come through that department. So I don't know if y'all have any other guesses. Our guest does reside in Colorado.
So they went from the Midwest to Erie. You said they were in the Midwest.
They had an award. They were the Midwest Regional Professional of the Year.
We don't even do those regions anymore.
Okay, so I'm gonna just unveil the guest, since I don't think your wheels are turning in the right direction. Today's guest is the principal consultant and certified leadership coach of 110%, which I know you guys have both heard of and been familiar with that organization.
Yeah.
So with that being said, please welcome today's guest, Farrell Bueller.
Hello.
Hey, Farrell, how are you?
Good, how are you? Good. You would have been here for the whole hour trying to figure it out. So, Jay, I'm glad you just cut to the chase for him.
Could have said talking at Traps in a month at Director Summit.
You are going to meet me pretty soon.
I would have known. Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
I've been at least in the same room with Farrell a few times, and I had an opportunity to mention Agents of Change as that one training opportunity that you had asked us to talk about earlier. And I know Farrell from Agents of Change. So good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Welcome to RecLess. And as someone that has been in our profession for many, many years, and made a transition, would love to just hear about what that transition was like to your current role and what might have led you to take that opportunity.
Yes. Parks and Recreation publicly here in Colorado, 20-ish years. Loved Parks and Recreation. And one day I was a Parks and Recreation director one day, and the next day I woke myself up to be appointed our city manager by our mayor. And I was like, whoa, you should pick like the finance director, the public works guys. That's who they pick for these roles. And she said, it's unanimous. It'll be tonight. It'll be you or external. So pulled the directors together, loved this town, wanted to lead this town and keep moving forward. So I said yes. Quickly, I just wasn't called to be that. I think it's the best way to describe it. Learned a ton, happy for the experience, hired my boss, stayed on as the deputy for a couple of years. And like in my heart, to answer why, like I just needed to get back to Parks and Recreation people full time. I love local government. I want to make communities better, and I just had to get back. So that's why people ask that all the time.
Yeah.
Which is super fair. And you know, kind of in that search of what was I going to do to get back to Parks and Recreation. I did a ton of studying on who I really was, what I wanted to become, what was possible. I think people think it just like happened overnight. It didn't. It took me good 6-9 months to figure it out. And I had the privilege of working with Jamie Sabak 20 years prior as a therapeutic recreation coordinator. And she said, hey, if you're ready, I'm ready. And we'll make you a position here at 110. So that's how I got back to Parks and Rec full time and what I'm doing now.
That's awesome. If there was someone else, and I'm sure there's people that might listen to this and say, man, I love that side of our industry, and you know, they wanted some advice, or if they wanted to potentially look at that like down the line from their career, what advice would you give them if they were trying to think about that as a possible career shift?
You know, the best advice I could give is people really need to look at their self first before they look and they see what other consultants are doing or companies are doing or anything. I think you have to get super grounded in who you are, what you want your purpose to be, why you want to wake up every day and do it. I think some days it's super easy and some days it's really hard. And you have to want to do it every day. And so I think like even this thing that you guys are doing and people speaking, it's like I think that allows professionals these days to kind of dabble in those arenas. Like what would facilitation be? What would project management be? But I think at your core, yeah, you need to really know who you are and what you want to be doing, I think would be my very best advice.
So you had previously been a city manager, and I have seen people and talked to people from our industry that transition to that. And I tell them the same thing every time. It sounds like the worst damn job I've ever heard of. So, very unique that you were a city manager and then stepped into the deputy city manager role, hired someone to be your boss, and then slowly did the Simpson gif where you just backed into the hedges and got out altogether. For those wanting to go into that role, it's more than service. I mean, it's financially balancing things, and it's public safety, which isn't things we always worry about. Sometimes our parks offload and unload things safely, but we're not out there enforcing a lot of rules. Even if we have rangers, most of the time you have backup. And so what was something about being a city manager that you didn't expect, that maybe you liked or you didn't like, but you definitely didn't see it coming?
You know, I didn't see, I think when you're in Parks and Recreation, generally people like you or love you. Like we get to do what everybody wants to be
That's
doing on
true.
their weekends. They might not like how you did or whatever. I was literally hated by strangers like instantly the day my title changed.
Yeah.
So I found myself in being named in lawsuits like instantly days after my title change, right? Or I found people like assuming that they knew that I had a political intention. I was given all of oil and gas hydraulic fracturing negotiations for our town, which was pretty heated. We got a liberal side and a conservative side, you know, like both mixes in the two Boulder County, Weld County. So I just didn't expect that. And for people to think like I was a different person.
Yeah, your IQ all of a sudden got lower in a lot of people's
And
opinions
people
of you.
just assumed like all kinds of stuff. And I was like, who are these people? Like, you know me. Sprinkler, you just liked me yesterday, right?
Yeah.
So I think a little bit of that, a little bit of reality for sure.
Yeah, wow.
It's so funny. I've never actually like thought about it that way, and that like we are very liked by the community. Obviously, like they love our services, they love what we offer. But anytime you tell someone, if you meet someone for the first time and you know they ask what you do for a living and you say anything with Park and Rec, they're like, "Oh, that's so interesting," or "Hey, I love this park," or "I love this program," or "I love that event." So that's easy transition to always like be positive when you're talking about your career.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think too, you know, as a city manager, it's really interesting, super fun. I mean, quick learning, super quick learning curve if you're looking for that. I think though you have to also you have to want to play the game, right? Whatever it is. So you're in, you know what you signed on for. And the rules are instantly different and you have to want to play it. At the same time, it's super rewarding because I don't know, if you love staff and you love teams and you love building people, I mean, you just have this autonomy to do that with really cool people inside cities that, frankly, a lot of them have never seen Parks and Rec leaders get to lead. And we are cut for it. I mean, we are awesome in the people world and in the people skills, I think.
We're super outward facing. We're super service oriented. but you're always a 4-3 or 3-2 or whatever your board is. You're always a 4-3 vote away from being gone.
Yeah. Yeah. 4 people don't like you and like, see ya.
Yeah,
Good
even if
luck.
40,000 did, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I can relate to that. In our current situation, we have a town supervisor, town leader who is looking to, been around for years and looking to kind of go off into the sunset. And I've been approached. I've heard it, and I don't think it's a surprise to me that the Parks and Recreation directors in certain settings would be asked to take that role because of what you just said, kind of just cut from that cloth, born to maybe rally a troop or rally groups and lead. But this is very enlightening to hear some of this. I know we've got, Dr. James Worsley. He's gone into that realm. Dietrich Stanford. So some of the individuals that I've met over time.
Jason Mangum went recently.
Yeah. So it happens, right? And it's definitely a really huge decision. There's a lot to consider. So now you dabbled there. You ended up going back with Parks and Rec with 110%. I want to talk a little bit about that. We've talked some about consulting, and just a quick sidebar. Farrell, you've worked with someone in New York State named Bob Kaczmarek, and Bob and
Kaczmarek! I know. Yes.
Wow, she nailed it. He is a downstater to the core. And yes, if you
I don't know
talk
what
to
that
him,
means.
well, if you heard him, I think you would.
Okay.
He's that accent that Farrell just demonstrated for us is spot on.
Gotcha.
And so you get to work with a lot of great people doing what you do, and you're traveling around. Can you touch and enlighten on that and how that really, the dynamic shifts from serving one singular community typically to now your reach is, it's really vast and somewhat limitless depending on what projects you decide to put your name on?
I feel so fortunate to be able to, at every role, every position I took, I didn't always take it for the title, the money, like those things. I took it for the people, right? And I always wanted to be in service of, like, how can I be in service of, how can I have a bigger influence? And I feel so thankful now that I do get to go from New York, Bob Kaczmarek, to California, to Texas, to Massachusetts, Utah. It's so fun to see the similarities in professionals in the profession across the US. And it's so cool to see the differences. And I love meeting people, getting refueled by who's doing what. The political nuances are super fascinating to me. And like I said, when I can just connect people, even as resource, or you feel alone, or how do you do this piece? I feel really fulfilled when I get to help do that for professionals, because y'all have a lot going on. You mentioned earlier, Shane, you used to be able to leave a conference and go implement something, and that is just not today. There's so many facets and so many things happening. So yeah, it's really cool to get to see and kind of be more at the, zoomed out or on the balcony or 30,000-foot view of seeing professionals in the profession.
Shane had mentioned, I believe, about the conferences that, what was it, Shane? Is it MRSA? NERSA. Okay. Yeah. So you had mentioned how you implement some of what you had witnessed with what they do, with what we do here at NRPA. Farrell, I got to assume that that's it. And I'm going to actually go back to Shane really quick. Your think tank that you all did for your master plan process. I got to assume that that's something that other groups are going to take and use.
They already are. Yeah, I've actually participated in a couple for other agencies' master plans, which is really cool.
So Farrell, without divulging any names but has there been anything that you just kind of mentioned, you get to see what these people are doing and how they fuel you. Has there been anything that you've seen that you can share with us that you went into a project, you had no idea that this was what it was going to be, and you said, wow, that is amazing, and then took that, implemented it in some of the other projects?
There are a few things we do get to see, and the people that are going to implement stuff are our people. I'll be super transparent about that. So Texas had a project that was really interesting that they thought there was this fight, resident, non-resident. Should we keep them out? Should we not? And when we could show them, like, hey, how much the non-residents are actually helping benefit the residents and programs, game changer. And now we actually utilize that in our data. And if we can help share that, we do. California had a project where literally their council was like, hey, since COVID, we don't need recreation anymore. Like, we're good. And so we were able to show them how they could, and their leader found it, how they could reinvest a few $100,000 into programs. And now council is like, we've got to have recreation. So like, however we can share that, trade that, utilize that. So I think anytime we can help connect the dots for organizations and I don't know. And I learn all the time too. There's a professional in Virginia right now who's taught me a ton about just equity and leadership and psychological safety and like how do we help instill that into leaders. So yeah, I think there's pieces everywhere that are coming to light, I guess, for lack of a better word. And you're like, gosh, how do I connect that person to this idea to that thing just to be helpful?
We recently RecLess spoke at NRPA, and then each of us all spoke, I think, individually. And the guys, Tom and Jay, speak all the time. I rarely do. And Tom said something really nice. I haven't responded back to him yet. I've just put him on read. But he said that I had a really this one session I did had a pretty high speaker ranking for me, and someone had said they wanted to hear more of me. My problem in speaking is I have a tough time convincing myself that I am an authority on much and that anyone would want to hear what I had to say. And so that's essentially the genesis of why I don't do a lot of speaking. And I usually only speak when these guys ask me to. How do you combat that? Because you've got to be going into agencies all the time and you are the authority or you're perceived to be the authority. How do you combat that feeling of what do I do if I don't know the right answer?
A lot of politic training. No, I'm just teasing. Let me get back to you. So I think there's two pieces. Everything I want to do starts in education, right? I'm continually learning. Like Jay mentioned, we met at director school. Now a few of us from director school trying to create a director summit to bring people back together. I always think collective knowledge of the best in the room is helpful. And I think Jay you were at that NRPA session I gave, right? And so part of that is like, how do you discover those pieces as the professional and the expert? So I think, Shane, to your question, everybody has a different style and approach. I'm not for everybody. I know that. But to go and know what I know and be willing to share that knowledge, right? If you're talking, you're sharing some level of knowledge. When people are also adding their input, that might be what's totally welcomed. I never feel like I have to know all the answers or be the expert in the whole thing. I just have to know my piece. And then I have to help other people connect the dots for what they're trying to learn. So I think there's a limit to the lane that I guess I'll never feel like I'm the smartest one in the room. I just know the pieces I know I'm willing to share. I'm going to take in other people's thoughts and ideas and try to connect those threads for the people that are there. So that's a really good question. And I'll be honest. I mean, you never know what you're going to get when you do show up to speak. You don't know who's coming. You don't know the people most of the time. When it's council and at the political level or when I coach executive teams, same thing. You don't always know the topics they want. So I do think there's a trust in being super confident. And I've done enough training now to be really confident in how do I help set the people up in the room to walk away with what they need, whether it came out of my mouth or not.
Well, I think there's a piece of that goes back to being authentic, because if you are giving a session or if you're doing a training and you're leading it and you're almost trying to portray that you do know everything and that your answer is the right answer and no one can tell you wrong, it's not going to be perceived as well as it would be if you were more authentic and just trying to connect those dots. And I've been to a session or two where you kind of, that speaker may come off as like a know-it-all, and there's a fine line between confidence and being cocky and, doing that. And, I don't see that a lot in our profession because we are very down to earth and we are just there to help and provide that knowledge. But I think that authenticity piece is huge when we're trying to speak to others.
The know-it-all part, that was Tom, right?
Yeah, no. Shane, I want to say that I don't think that you're the only one in that boat, right? I believe everybody probably feels a lot of what you're feeling of is there validity to what we're saying? And no, I don't. It'd be hard to say that anybody who comes and presents is the know-it-all, one-all, be-all expert on this. And Jay, to the point of the authenticity, honestly, I feel like what I really rest on and what I can really say, hey, this is what I have, it's passion. And so yeah. If your passion is genuine and authentic, it helps a lot. And Shane, I think that's where, not to give out too many compliments to Shane, I think that's why people really enjoy your presence and talking to you, because your passion and your authenticity is pretty unquestioned.
I think it's my fear that I'm going to say something. Everybody's like, well, yeah, we already know that. Be like, well, okay, well, then talk to you later.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
That's fine.
Well, there's if they come to a session to learn something.
But hopefully you have more than one takeaway.
No,
right.
Not me.
No,
I'm a one-trick pony.
I'll just say, like, in coaching too, like, I know that's like my other role, but in like coaching, we know every single person, whether you call it like imposter syndrome or whether you call it like the other voice in your head, or, whether it has a name, like everybody has both sides of that. Right? And sometimes that protects you, and other times it fears you, it holds you back. Men, women, whatever background, age, it doesn't even matter. We all have those pieces. And so I think there's also that level of like just telling that sound like, hey, thanks so much. I don't need you right now. Like I got this, right? And feed the piece of you that's like the best parts of you. And that comes through Shane or, for any of you. I mean, you're all doing this podcast for a reason, for the profession and professionals. You're getting something from it, but you're really doing it for others. And that's, to your said, that's passion, that's authenticity, that's willing to know some things. It's all those pieces.
And I want to follow up with the coaching piece because I'm fascinated by it. We haven't talked to anyone that does that yet on this podcast. Chase Ellis, who I don't know but know of, from Texas, just went from DeSoto assistant director, and he is very heavily involved in professional development and just community. It seems like a guy. Jay and I know Bryce, and he does a lot of stuff with Bryce in Utah with some of his trainings and things as well. He gave you a hat tip when he said he was going from, was it Prosper that he was going to? No,
he's going to Trophy Club.
Trophy Club. Yep, up there in the North Dallas area. So, an executive coach, I've always been fascinated by that. I had coached before I got into this field, and so coaching is always something that I'm very intrigued by. And I think we could even add it in more places. Like almost like master plans could have a segment where if you have a young director, you could add an executive coaching piece. So not only are you rolling out a 10-year plan, you're rolling out a 10-year plan for that director to grow as that plan or agency grows. But what is that executive coach? Take us through that. If one of us reached out to you and said, hey, we need a little coaching, are you asking us for next steps or what our career moves are? Or how do you evaluate where we're at and where we need to be?
I did a 300-hour program called Coactive to get my CCP certification. And then I went to International Coaching Federation to get that certification. And you don't have to have all that to coach, right? But the difference is, yes, I start with people and I'm like, what is it that you're trying to do? Solve it, move up, get better, whatever it is. What's going on in your organization? So there's a series of questions, and then we just practice. Like, what's the topic you want to coach on? As the coach, the way I do it, the way I've been trained is I don't actually give you the answers. I don't tell you what to do. I don't make your next steps. I just need to help unravel the things you already know and bring them back to forward. So we work on that. We work on, again, who are you at your core values, the very best you when you show up, how you process information. So all of the goals and the steps are yours. Using Chase as an example, Chase, Bryce, myself, and Angela Summers are on that director section group to get the summit going so we can bring back directors. Chase wanted to work on some of his professional development components specifically, and he wanted to use his very best self and resources to see which decision was best for him, right? Staying in DeSoto, moving to Trophy Club. And so how does he walk through that with confidence when he's making that decision? I'm only going to say that because everybody knows he's there now.
Yeah.
And helping set him up the very best way we can, or that he can, so he's super confident in whatever that decision that's right for him. So I get to work with one-on-one with people. Somebody you mentioned earlier, I'm getting to work with their team, like team coaching for implementation and decision making and handling really hard stuff is like awesomely empowering. And whether I'm working with city managers and their executive teams, or Parks and Recreation frontline people, or councils and groups like that, a couple private businesses that serve Parks and Recreation. I don't know. I think it kind of helps people get to the next best them, whatever that is.
That's got to be super for a coach, seeing someone excel in whatever you've been working on. That's got to be a really cool treat.
It's so awesome.
Yeah, because you probably
really
see their ability to do it way before they do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You just have to let them do it in their time, their way, right. It is. I love it.
What's the commitment from something like that? Is it once a week, once a month, an hour here or there?
Yeah, it's twice a month, an hour. And usually I say you're going to need at least 6 sessions. You need 90 days, right, to make habits and changes. Some people have stayed on for a couple of years, or they're like, hey, let's take a break and then come back because now I have another thing. Just depends on how fast they want to work through their goals and kind of what phase of life they're at.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Now, when you were talking about that, you mentioned coaching also a team. And I think, at least like when I first thought of it, I was thinking more individual based. Have you ran into scenarios where you're coaching a team and there's someone on that team that's not invested into it or bought into it, and how do you handle that?
Yep. So I have a team right now that I get to work with, and I love the team, but like the person that's doing their own thing really stands out, right? And it's really making it hard for the team. Really, I have some really good hard conversations with the city manager, like, hey, are we managing this person in or are we managing this person out? Right? I learned from Tom O'Rourke a long time ago, some others, that you're going one direction or the other, right? And that person has to be bought in. You're trying to get in or you're trying to get out. So some really good hard conversations, some self-awareness, as well as wanting all the players to buy in to whatever they're creating. This team I got to work with recently, I did a Lego serious play facilitation with them so they could create their own vision. They all create the vision of what they want that organization to be. But at the end of the day, I'll follow the customer's lead, like the client's lead on which direction are we going with this person? How much effort do you want to put in? All the things you read on LinkedIn though about the super toxic person taking out all the great people, I say it's true. That's just my own. So you're either telling that person your behavior is okay, or you're telling that person it's not, it needs to change. I love to put 80% of my energy into the 80% of the people that are going the same direction.
Yeah.
But it's super hard, and it's hard everywhere. It's really hard in government. You all know that when you get that really sticky person, you feel it.
Yeah,
For
it's
sure.
got to be a challenge. I always like to make metaphors, and you think about, football, I guess, is relevant right now. And so you look at all these, you look at players like Antonio Brown, right? He might have been going in the 20%, the direction, that other direction of the 20%. And ultimately you utilize those people for the skills that they have. And like you said, put the focus on the other individuals. And I can imagine that the rewarding piece of it is you kind of have now this coaching tree of, you could say, wow, these individuals all came and had this success, and they then could ultimately pass along some of that wisdom or any kind of real impact that it had on them to others, which is ultimately what you're looking to do.
Absolutely.
So to transition into a conversation that I think we just touched on it a little bit with Becky Dunlap when she was with us, you got your hands in a lot of different projects. Can you talk a little bit about, and I know it doesn't exist, but a typical week or day, like what is that like now for you? You're doing a coaching session, you're working on maybe a master plan process. How does that really work for someone who might be interested in transitioning? Just kind of out of some curiosity, what kind of advice would you have for people? How does that typically look with your schedule now?
So, there's probably differences because I know consulting companies, Becky Dunlap, they might have hundreds of staff, right? So their role in what they're doing, I mean, you think of it being closer to a Parks and Recreation director in a really huge city, right? You're a small fish in a really big city. So your lane might be a little more narrow. 110%, we have full-time employees, right? So we're small, we want to stay small. So we have vast, right? A few more duties, if you will, or job titles, I guess, or expectations, because there's only 4 of us. So I prefer to be a little wider and broader. I like to dabble in, like, that kind of fuels me. All the stuff I do though is in one of 3 realms: ethics, financial sustainability, and adaptive leadership. So anything we do can fit into one of those pieces because it's really important to have some level of framework. And especially for Jamie that I work with, if you know her, she's more, education based and structured. So we call ourselves sunshine and rain. You can figure out who's who. Both are needed for things to grow, but we each have a little bit of a different realm. And my day or my given week is anything from, like, right now we're filling the funnel and the pipeline, creating connections, and then I have this piece of altruism and creation of new things, and then I have this piece of like give back. Sometimes I might coach somebody for free, or we'll just do extra calls because somebody needs, there's this like service piece that you all do, so it's the same, just different. A lot of project management hours, deciding what's the best use of your time and reprioritizing if I'm speaking, or when I'm fortunate to go lead like a director summit and facilitate even a trap. So any given week you're really structuring, you're planning out your whole week early, you're looking at the next week, you're reprioritizing. So it's not probably all that different than what you're doing. Your tasks are just different. Like my community is now Parks and Recreation professionals, right? Versus 50,000 households. And so it's a balance though. I won't, and there's always that like curveball that comes in, or
Oh yeah.
somebody that threw in a wild hair, didn't like what you did, or I don't know, that they got something super angry and you're like, oh my gosh, how can we help you? So think of what you do and how you prioritize, you reprioritize, you got all these projects. I would say where I save the most time is I don't have to supervise a bunch of staff. I love growing leaders, and I love growing leaders that are ready to grow. I don't have to sit in HR meetings all day long in litigation. So, I know some people get charged on that. I was kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
this
It
is
could be
killing my
exhausting.
spirit. Yeah. So that's the only thing that I would say. I don't have the revolving door of 20 hours a week where I'm just solving other people's life stuff. I still do that, but it's much more concentrated and I get to choose who I do that with. Then you all have probably a lot of some of that stuff that if people just show up an adult really well, you would probably have a lot of time back.
Right.
Yeah,
I love that you.
I was just say, sounds like we're gonna after this podcast have a lot of people jumping ship.
For sure.
We need you. Just we'll help you. We need you. You need you. They need to listen to you all and be, the fact that you all even are doing things to help other people refuel and professionals refuel, whether it's in your state, whether it's NRPA, whether you're speaking, it's like that is the profession, right? And other people stepping up to help. We're working in one state right now where they just want their members to also help step up. But the leadership is all volunteer to run that association. They're doing an awesome job. And it's like, that's all volunteer. I mean, I think if people could just do something, you don't have to take on the presidency, you don't have to do the whole thing. If people would just start doing something for each other, I think the refuel goes both directions, right? Everybody feels better. So you're doing it and you're demonstrating that all the time.
I love you mentioned Jamie. Jamie's someone that I think of is led more than almost anybody in our industry by her convictions. And I've always respected that about her. And and she has her convictions. She has great conversation about her convictions, but she's not polar in the fact that if you don't agree with them, she can no longer discuss anything with you. It's great discourse and conversation. I mean, 110 started from something that came from her convictions and her frustration at work. And so working under her, working with her, what is one thing that you were surprised about, from getting to be a partner with her?
She's funny and she is so loving. People, and she's probably going to hang me for saying this, people would not realize she's so giving and loving. I mean, she handmade me this from woodworking for Christmas, right? She sent me a sunshine pillow for my birthday. Like, people don't see that cozy side of Jamie.
Yeah, she hides it.
She does. And yet the other thing I would say about Jamie is, and even if you back to that question, if you look to go from this role to this role, you got to have your own place, right? I am not going to deliver stuff the way Jamie does. I mean, literally, like financial sustainability and ethics comes out of her pores, right? Like that's totally how she's made. She studies it for a living. That is not how I'm made. So you have to have your own lane. Like, who are you? What are you going to do? What do you bring to the table on projects? The first time that I used to do presentations, she would listen in and I felt like I was, on The Voice singing Blake Shelton's song, right? I was like, oh gosh, I'm giving, right. And that was like, is anybody going to take me as credible or understand that I love this? I get it. I've practiced it I practiced financial sustainability before we even were talking about it because I believed in it. So that was a surprise, is like, I have to have my own way, my own pulse. I can still be credible and do a bang up job. It just looks different than Jamie's style. And that's probably why Jamie and I work really well together. I'm sure I drive her nuts a lot of days because I'm me. She knows she's going to get. And at the same time, I think it's why we are so effective and so efficient in the number of projects we're able to deliver, the number of professionals we're able to impact, why we can deliver what we do with 4 people, things like that.
You can really
you have to stand your ground of who you are when you're coming into a thing with a Jamie Sabak, right? Or whoever that is.
But the combo of y'all really spans the spectrum, right? Yeah. Has it completely locked down.
And that's got to be why, partly why there's been so much success between, with 110 is she's got a dynamic following and you have a following and it's, different focuses on different things. And it's just like kind of comes together for the same purpose though. Because I know, Jamie's been around forever and I've been in a lot of her sessions. And whenever someone at a conference or a state association sees that name, they're going to flock to that session because you know you're going to have a lot of takeaways and walk away with something that is going to make you think differently. And I think that's what's kind of been like a highlight of mine with getting to know her or seeing some of their things is like, it makes you walk out being like, why don't we ever think about doing it that way? And that's key when you're trying to implement change.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I think too, for people hearing this, going from this role to that role, the other piece that when you think of change and implementing and what would you need, I think the other piece is knowing your role is going to change. When you have a title, when I was a city manager, I now know, I didn't believe it at the time. I now know people did stuff because my title was city manager, right?
Yeah.
When I worked for the city of Boulder, everybody knew the city of Boulder and I was something, right? In RPA, oh, Boulder, Colorado, right? Commerce City. People are like, what? I'm like, I love Commerce City, right? But people are like, why would you work there? When you're the city manager to now you're a consultant, people are like, what's your angle? Like, we don't have to follow you. We don't have to believe you. We don't have to. And so that change just in itself to implement and to get people to implement change, like you're trying to do it internal, we're trying to do it as an external.
Yeah.
All for the same result though. How do we make communities better? How do we give people what they need? Same intention, different ways of going about it. But if you go to one of Jamie's sessions, you're going to come away thinking something, whether you love it or you're crabby with her, and she'll be like, bring it on. So yeah.
In your travels, is there a hidden gem or a agency that you went to or a spot that, whether it was a park system or maybe a part of the park system, that you were quite surprised that you got to visit?
There's one in Texas.
Oh, all right.
I know, I feel bad calling anybody out. There's one in Texas right now.
Just go ahead and say Pflugerville. It's not a big deal.
I am like, oh, it's like so many cool little touches, right?
You can say it. Who was it?
There's definitely one in Minnesota that you're like, you just love it when you get there. I mean, I think that's the thing too. If you love Parks and Recreation, I mean, Virginia has one, and some of the stuff they're really doing, they're like, here's what our paper says is important, but here's what we're really doing to prove importance. Obviously, there's a couple in Colorado because I'm biased to Colorado, but Colorado's fortunate because people generally love Parks and Recreation and financially support it, right?
Sure.
Like, it's not that that's everywhere. I don't know. I could tell you something I love about a lot of places because of the people that are in there working though, right? And the people and the care, like the detail of care at certain things is just like stunning.
So a follow-up to that, and we asked Neely this as well. Consulting's no longer an option. We've rid ourselves of consultants, and you have to come back into the park and rec industry. Not so much the agency, although you can call it a director if you want, put them on blast. But what profile are you looking for? Like what type of agency, size, what they do and don't do, what they have or don't have? What are you looking for if you had to come back into the field? And what role? Doesn't have to be a director. I think Neely's was the innovation strategist or something. So yeah, if you had to come back into our field, what would you be looking for? What would interest you?
Okay. Well, if money was no issue, right? Or someday when I can do whatever I want with all my time, I'm coming back into local government and I am solving housing for families that really need help getting restarted. So I am grabbing moms, dads, grandmas, aunts and uncles, people with super tough little kiddos. I mean, the toughest of the toughest kiddos, and I am teaching the adults and those young people how to change the spectrum of their life.
Oh, that's cool.
How to redo it, how to set up skills. If I'm coming back into local government and I'm doing the thing, I'm looking for an agency that, it's 50 to 100-ish thousand people where they are ready to go forward. And everything doesn't have to be done the standard way. We can take the code and the UDC and all these things and mash them together and plan holistically. And people aren't afraid to hear no. They're not afraid to push the envelope, and they love yes. And we get to yes by making stuff happen a whole lot faster. Like it doesn't take 5 years to get through a thing. Even in one of our projects, I was like, how could we bust out this plan in 3 months for this agency versus 12 to 18? How do we do it different? And I'm not everybody's cup of tea in that, and I know that, but that's the organization I would be looking for. Like who's ready to go? And I'm not saying you break the rules or you're not transparent or any of that. You bring the community with you and you just go make stuff happen. And it doesn't have to take 3, 6 months, 12 years.
That's cool.
And you talk really honestly with people, right? Thank you for your idea right now. We're not doing that. We will keep it on this list right now. We're doing this. That'd be so fun.
Well,
not more fun than what I'm doing, but super fun.
You mentioned, doing it in a short period of time and implementing it just so that it has that impact, which I think is phenomenal. Too many times I feel like I talk to someone and I've seen it in agencies I've worked for that, you go through a new master plan or you go through a new initiative or a fee study or a program assessment, and then it just sits on the shelf. And it's like, it was exciting while it was happening, and it might have been a 3-month progress or a 6-month project, whatever it might have been. What are you doing or trying to implement so that doesn't happen with an agency and it just doesn't just sit there and doesn't change anything?
Yeah. I think approaching it from both directions, right? So when people interview us, we're interviewing them too. Are we actually a good fit for your project? Am I actually a good fit? Because if you want a project because you're supposed to do it, I get it, but you may not be right because you're probably not going to get a standard thing. So when you approach it from top down and bottom up at the same time, it's like, here's what they need for the so-and-so executive report. And then here's what the staff person needs to get to go do tomorrow. And so that approach to me is somewhat effective. There's a group in Minnesota we just finished working with, and the center supervisor was like, what can I start doing now? My staff are excited and they're ready to do something. And I'm like, okay, here are 5 things that you could literally go do in the next 30 days. And here's what you need to get set up. And this person just needs this plan to be a platform for the next plan, which is going to be a few years. So I was like, here's how I'll write that. Here's how I'll write it. And then here's how I'll write it. Because when you have frontline people ready to go and they have bandwidth, and you all know this, there's pockets of time when they can think and implement, and there's pockets of time you just need to leave them alone and let them go take care of all of the stuff already on their plate. And everybody doesn't want to do that. I'll be super honest. All the professionals that want to do plans, they don't actually all want to do that. That's not a great idea to them. So if staff aren't ready and you're not ready, that's okay. Just don't do the plan yet. Do it when you want to get super quick wins, and don't burn your people out. Like if you're all exhausted, like refuel first, give yourself some grace, or start with one thing and then like measure it better, do better. You don't have to do like, I used to leave Jamie's classes when I was a student. And sometimes I was like, oh my gosh, it's so big. How do I start? It'll take 5 months to get everything. And it's like, okay, now it's like, what's the one thing I could actually go do tomorrow? Right? I could actually open my reports and see Bob. I could actually, and I think just breaking it down so it's bite-sized. And you're probably already doing that in certain realms, I'm guessing, if you all know your stuff and your people and your whatever. I used to ask people too, like, who's burnt out on my team? Like 1 to 10. Who's at a 10? Who's max? Who's at a 5 and that's coasting because I'm probably gonna give you something else to do. Right. And everybody's bandwidth is different. And let people try some stuff, even if it's like not their job description, but they just want to try it.
Yeah, those are all great messages. And I want to go back to, you talked about a little bit about working with a group that was dealing with residency versus non-residency. And we have a really, at least in my opinion, a mindset that I'm very proud of. And that's everybody's welcome. We want everybody from every community to come into our community. If they're going back into their community and telling their neighbors that, hey, why don't they do this? The town over is doing this, or the city's over. That economic impact ultimately is either driving people to move to our community or just come into our community and spend their dollars and their time with our community or wherever that is, our facilities and our services. So that sounds like a really neat conversation to have and try to really change some minds and change a thought process, because I think there's a lot of people out there who are really closed door. We're here to serve our community. So a project like that, pretty neat, pretty unique. Is there one that when you took over the transition into consulting, that you could say, I didn't expect to be working on something like this, but I'm really excited and I'm really proud of it?
I don't think I expected how many findings from like Utah we could actually recommend, in Texas that we could actually recommend it. I don't think I realized how many likeness of concepts were going to be replicatable. Like I really, because you think, if you looked at New York and Texas and, Carolina, it's like, oh, it's so different. We're really dense. We're really this, or our politics are this. I had no idea how many ideas that, even this project in Georgia right now, I was like, when I learned where they're at, they have a heart of gold with, we talk about business acumen, brain versus service and how do you balance it. I was like, I'll just give you 20 of my best ideas. You pick the 5 that you think you can move forward. And they're coming from all these other places that they're not like Georgia at all. I had no idea how much duplication or replication is possible. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You probably already do that. I just didn't know you could do it with data. I didn't know you could do it with how to help your community. I didn't get that a long time ago. I thought it was like personal, but I didn't get you could really even California. I haven't talked a lot about them. They're a different breed, but even in California, there's a lot of pieces that they could even. And so we try to like pair people up. You go trade information. That's how the industry is. If you each had one thing, if I was like, what's the one thing you need to make happen this year in your organization? You had to bucket it down to one thing. What is that?
Are you reversing roles right now? Are you,
Yeah.
are you
Yeah, I was like, let's change this up. You said it's a surprise show, so
Yeah.
I did. And I don't think this is
trying to do.
No one's ever done that. And I love it. I think this is
Yeah, this
actually
is
pretty
great.
cool. This is the first. I think you
Your
totally
faces, you're all like, oh man, did she really do that? I did.
I'll go first.
I have to do this one thing this year. What is it?
I'll go first. So our when I got to Pflugerville, 14 of my playgrounds were 15 years of age or older, and only half the playgrounds were shaded. Right now we have 34 playgrounds, all but one are shaded. So I've still got one more that needs to get shaded. And if I do playground replacements for these last 8 that I have on my to-do list, which is really about 2 years worth of work, but if I can get it done in a year, I get the average age of our playground under 5 years for 34 playgrounds, and every one of them in the state of Texas would be shaded. And
So
so
you're
that's
going
a
to shade
huge.
8 playgrounds this year. That's kind of what I heard.
I'm going to shade my last one, and then I'll have all 30 shaded, but every new playground
Okay.
will get shade. You're right. So every new
Okay.
playground replacement I do also comes with shade. So I'll do 9 shades this year, 8 new playgrounds plus one more.
All right. I love it.
For me, it's funny you mentioned earlier about asking someone for, we just want something now. We want some instant gratification. And so to Shane's point, I think our programs and our facilities, we're comfortable with programs. We're always evolving. Everybody knows that. They're very good at it. Our facilities, of course, that process takes a little bit longer here and there, depending on what you're doing. So there's always a focus on in the background. We put a big emphasis on culture, but I talked about this the other day when we were working with Chris and Amelia when we were talking about trends in 2024. And what I really want to focus on right now, if there was no limitations, is top to bottom from the agency, working on our employee wellness and you talked about burnout. I want to avoid that. I want to do whatever we can and put the focus on them. It's hard. It's a challenge to really get the time and allot that time to that effort when you have everything else going on in the background. But that's really what I want to work on right now is creating an environment. We already have the culture, but it's more of an environment that focuses on that wellness and avoiding burnout.
That's awesome.
I would say for me, it's a professional development aspect is getting more of our staff involved to where we can meet their goals. So I do an annual survey every year for our whole division, and I only ask them 4 questions. It's very simple. What's your favorite thing about your job? What's the one thing you would change if we could change anything? What can we as leadership do to bring more enjoyment to your job? And that third question, most of the answers this year were about professional development or training or conferences or webinars or just getting more tuned in to the profession. So I'm kind of making it a goal to try to get every single person to go to something. It doesn't have to be a conference. It can be an online thing, but get them registered for something so that we can say that we provided that support so everyone has that opportunity to grow.
That's awesome.
That's great. We've never had the reverse Uno card thrown on our way. I think that's good. Maybe more people do it.
Yeah, you definitely knew the assignment, I guess. That is very unique. You threw us for a loop.
Before we let you go, at least for my last question I'd have for you, consultants get a great opportunity to see our industry at a higher vantage point than the rest of us. I mean, local government is in a lot of ways blinders for a good reason. We are there to serve the 12 or 1,200,000 people that are in our agency, that our agency is tasked with serving. And so in a lot of ways, we can hunker down a little bit in our field and only do what we're currently doing and maybe just even incrementally trying to do it better. Seeing our industry as a whole and getting to visit so many agencies, what are 1 or 2 things that we're not doing yet, but this industry needs to be looking at doing, whether we're bringing on those folks that do that thing or we're going in a direction where we're taking that under the Park and Rec umbrella?
I'm going to speak to the director level staff. I think Parks and Recreation directors need to make sure that their internal alignments with the other directors in the city and those relationships are solid. You got to know how your police chief is talking to city council, and you need to get along with your police chief and make sure you both realize how you benefit the community. You got to tell your finance director, you're not just making up numbers. It's that you had a plan and you added 10,000 people and it changed. And you got to know how they do finance. And you got to know how, the planning department is approving plans and accepting land. But now you're gifted and you got to make sure like this is the land you want and you need and you want to take care of, right? And so I think Parks and Recreation directors have got to get inserting themselves if they're not in with the other departments that are making decisions because you have a viable seat at the table. You are important and necessary. You're here for the long haul, and you're the reason why people choose this community. They don't go, oh my gosh, this water system, it's amazing. Those pipes are so good. I'm gonna go live there. They don't do that. They pick Parks and Recreation, they pick schools, they pick safety. I think some places are doing it really well, and I think other people are like, I just need to do my thing. Or other directors are saying, cool, you're the Parks and Rec guy or gal. We got it. And I think you got to get in and get going.
Quick follow-up to that. Shane asked that just based on you having the ability to travel and see different things from a different lens. What is the favorite state you've been able to visit? Not necessarily because of Park and Rec. Maybe there was food, maybe it was a culture piece, maybe it was an attraction that you were able to visit based on a project that you had to go and take on.
I recently got to visit North Carolina for a project, and
sucking up to Jay.
Might get to go to Rhode Island. I might get I got to go to Boston and go south. Massachusetts. It was just like culture, food, water, hills, trees. It was really special.
We did not plug that. I didn't know I was going to ask that question. So.
You did know. And if you have Colorado, get out here. You always have a place. My house is organized chaos, but come to our institute in Boulder. It's changed your life this year. Yeah. It was pretty awesome out there.
I lied. I got one more question. So you're a speaker that people, they see you on the agenda and they make sure they get to your session, right? And I don't think that is something you should be surprised to hear. But who is that speaker for you? Who is a speaker that if you're looking at an NRPA program or you're at a state conference and even maybe you're speaking, but you see this person, you're like, okay, I'm going to move what it takes to get to hear their session.
Okay, you know who I want to hear next? I'll tell you this because I'm going to miss them by one day. I want to hear Nick Kittle next.
Oh, okay. Who? I don't know anything about Nick, so inform me more.
He does like sustainability. He does like government stuff. He's going to be in Wisconsin next week when I'm in Wisconsin, and I'm just going to miss him by like day, and I'm bummed because I don't know exactly what he does, but I'm so attracted to like how he acts, outputs. Yeah.
Very cool.
That's great.
I look that up.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look that up.
That's to the guy I don't even know, I've never seen, but like he's on my list. I'm going to track him down. I'm going to make this happen. Yes.
He might have to be a future guest.
That's right.
Yeah, great follow-up question to that for our listeners. Where's your next speaking appearance that maybe somebody could catch you?
Okay. Can I tell a couple?
Yeah.
This is super quick. So we'll be in Wisconsin because we get to like help their membership be better members. Not super thorough. I'll be at Traps. So I get to lead their director summit for a few hours and then do a session. And then my next one is in Nova Parks, Virginia. It's 4 directors. I'm bringing them together with Chase, Bryce, and Angela to help solve the hardest challenges people have and do perspective shifting. Those are a few at the top of the list. That
didn't Bryce step up into city management when we were talking about that? Didn't Bryce step up into like city leadership role or something? He's not a director anymore.
He's a director now. Oh, Bryce. Oh. Yeah, Bryce did. Yeah, Bryce in Centerville, Utah. Yeah, he just he has changed positions and is doing that now in Utah as well.
Nice.
Which we met at like PR Summit, like the speed dating with vendors thing 10 years ago. So yes, I'll be there. I love it. I don't know. And because you had me on today, if I can help y'all 3 out after this or provide a resource or connect you, I'm happy to do that. I'd love to give back to you all. I know you're giving
awesome.
Everybody else.
That's great. You may increase our reader by 4 or 5 viewers.
Our reader.
Yeah, People aren't reading the show, Shane.
Yes, I think I don't know if you understand what we're doing here, but
What are we doing here?
And we wonder why he doesn't speak very often at
That's right. That's right.
Awesome, Farrell. Well, thank you
are
so
very
much.
important, Shane. Yeah, thank you all for having me.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for
Thanks,
being with
Farrell.
us. And we look forward to seeing you at future opportunities to hear you speak.
Sounds great. Have a great day.
Bob
Yeah,
says
take care.
hello, by the way.
Bob
Bob
Kosmatic,
K.
thank you. Tell him hi back.
Will do.
Downstater.
That's right.
So I don't know if you guys caught it, but we were having a trouble with our camera when we first started.
I did. There was some, it looked like a filter was going
Did she have
through
a
there.
sticky note on it?
So as you can see, there's a picture on her Zoom account
Yep.
when she's not having a camera. It's a picture of her, and I'm like, well, we got to hide that somehow. And then the sticky note fell off for like a very, very split second.
Yeah.
I thought
caught
I
it.
saw a blurb or something, but
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
I
Oh, she
was
caught
a
it really
flash.
quick.
I
don't
was
know that
really
you could-
hoping.
I don't know that you could see that there was the person there, who the person was, but it was really quick. But
No.
it was funny. We were talking before we started, and I don't know that you both knew her very well.
No
but
other.
mentioned that there was a conversation that she had once about doing a podcast with Tom and with other colleagues, and that individual that you mentioned, his name came up, and that was the extent of the two of you that she had worked with. So it was cool trying to figure out if you would know who that was. And she's been great. I've known her for several years now, and glad that she could join us today.
I've never had a conversation with her like that. I think we were when we did the Agents of Chains group, we were just like your director school working in different teams, but we never worked on the same team. It wasn't maybe that large. It might have been 40, 45 people in those rooms. Yeah, we never worked on the same team. So really just being in the same room, and obviously knowing from her reputation, as Shane had mentioned before, she has a pretty good presence in our field. But having that conversation was great. She's got some really great energy, and you could really see how that would transition into what she does. I mean, in everything she's done, but definitely into what she's doing now.
I love that her and Jamie call themselves Sunshine and Rain. That is
perfect.
so spot on.
That is like such a cool definition. And I've never heard that before about like two people.
Yeah.
But that's awesome.
They've got a really neat relationship to watch from afar without even knowing them. If you follow them 110% on LinkedIn, so maybe we need to take a couple of the lessons from what they do, but they really share a lot of some of their unique moments and more personal moments. I believe it was Jamie's birthday. They had her team had surprised her, Farrell surprised her, and they had sang happy birthday and all that. And Jamie had no idea it was coming. They videotaped it. Great moment. So I guess it's going to be a goal of mine to try to surprise Jay or Shane or get some of these moments for our one or two listeners.
Yeah. Awesome. Or readers. For those that read us.
Or maybe it's a TV show. I'm not sure.
I think I meant to say viewers, but it came out readers.
That's great. Well, hey guys, as always, it's been a blast. And it's so fun talking to someone new that you may not know or may not know a lot about, and then just obviously striking so many different chords that we can all relate on. And hopefully that builds a relationship with not just us, but other people that might listen to this and then want to connect with Farrell and 110% and other people from her team.
Yeah, for sure. That was a great one. Thanks for doing that.
Nice work, Jay.
Hey guys. Well, thanks for listening, and hope you enjoyed, and we'll catch you soon, everybody. Take care.
Yeah. Tom's up next for like the next 12.
Next season.
We'll see you all next time. And the time after that.
And the time after that.